Hey guys, welcome back. Thanks for joining me. So I've been getting this question a lot through social media where people are asking, how do you prevent lines like this from happening when you're working with your alcohol markers? And I know in a previous video I talked about it, but I thought I'd do a video to show how to prevent this, not only in big spaces, but also if you're trying to get around all the little details. How do you prevent this from happening? I did this intentionally so that you guys could see the edge. So what has happened here is I colored with alcohol marker all around this edge, and then I didn't continue keeping wet with wet, and I colored the middle. So then it makes this harsh line that you can see all around this little hippo, and that's not what we want. Sometimes if you're looking for a certain effect, you can use this to your advantage, but in this instance, that's not what we want. It looks like someone spilled water on him and now he has a watermark for life. So not what we want for this cute little hippo. But there is a way to get around that. And whenever you're working with alcohol markers and you want to prevent these lines from happening, always make sure that wherever you're using your marker, if you're going to end up like covering a really big space, keep wet with wet. So like if I'm coloring this little whale, I would probably start here and then go down and just keep going back and forth so that the edge of where I'm coloring and where I need to color always stays wet. And as long as that stays wet, you will get smooth alcohol coloring. You're not going to have any issues with these ugly lines, and it works really great. But someone had specifically asked me what happens if you're trying to go around little tiny things, because you do have to color a little bit slower so that it doesn't get messy. And that's an excellent question. How do we do that? So the way I would approach this first is I would look at what do I need to color. So for this, we're going to do the water that's in the background. And there's a lot of it, and there's a lot of little things that are happening in this water that I don't want to be blue. So my first thought would be, where should I start? You don't want to just sort of start in the middle, because now you've already got two edges that you have to keep wet, and you're going to have to work them all through this giant mess of sea creatures, which is not what you want. You want to make it as simple as possible. So before you start coloring, take a look at your page and just figure out, where should I start? Can I start from a corner? Would that be a good spot to start? Almost like if you ever did mazes as a kid, where do I start? How do I end? Sort of look for where you would start and what path you would be taking with your marker so that you have the least number of open edges as you're coloring. And then you want to just remember to always keep wet with wet. So I'm going to show you how to do that, because it's a little bit more tricky than just making sure you have this one edge and you're keeping it wet. If you're juggling multiple edges, which is what's going to happen through coloring this that I'll show you, it's a little more tricky, but there is still a way to get it done so that it looks clean and that you don't have edges. So I'm just using this Copic Chow marker. It's a B02 in case anyone really likes the color. And I'm using my brush tip side. So in looking at this, I feel like because I'm right-handed, I don't want to start left to right, or right to left. I want to start left to right. And I think I'm going to actually start in this bottom corner right here. And I'm going to start filling all this in, and then we're going to have edges that come up here, but we'll keep those wet, and then we're going to have edges that go out through here, and we'll keep those wet. Something else to keep in mind too is if there's a really thin spot, like for example something like in here, you know you're going to put blue right in there before you get to this spot, but it's not as critical that you keep that edge wet, because it's probably not even going to be noticeable by the time your coloring sheet is done. So those kind of give you a little bit of a save. Or if you're coloring and there are separated lines between things, like this floor or this background here of this wall. So this little hippo has separated this from this. I only really have to color this with keeping everything wet on wet, and then do the same with this and this. It's not like I have to join any of that. So always look for these lines that can help kind of give you a save and make it a little bit easier to color without having to worry about making lines that you don't want. So we're going to start in this bottom corner, and with Copics you do circles. So it's almost like you're scrubbing something with your brush, but you can see already got a lot of edges. Look at that, 3 edges from this. And as much as I want to finish that, I'm not going to. I'm going to go back and I'm going to add some wet marker to that. So you kind of have to tell your brain, hey, I know you want to finish this spot, because it needs color, but at the same time, your actual main goal is just to keep every edge wet until you get all of it colored. So it doesn't mean you have to go super fast, so you don't have to worry that you're going to end up ruining your page because you can't be neat. You can still go at the speed that you need to go to get everything colored properly, but not messy, and still remove or prevent these lines from happening. So it's kind of like there's a clock in your mind that says, oh, 3 seconds have passed, I must go back and add some marker liquid to some marker moisture to this section. And that's really all it is go in a rotation if you can remember to go in a rotation, but it's just a matter of keeping everything wet and not focusing so much on filling an area, because that's gonna just happen as you keep the marker wet. Your goal is just to keep all the edges wet and to not accidentally color over something that shouldn't be in the color that you're coloring with. And I love how the example that I picked to share with you all is like one of the most complicated, because there's so much in this little ocean. But hey, it's proof it can be done. You just got to be on it. So just pay attention to where all your edges are, and you can see you don't have any edges yet. So now it's getting a little bit easier, because if you've noticed, I only have 2 open edges, so I can actually cover a little bit more of the page without having to worry that it's going to dry out as quickly. This paper as well, in a lot of these coloring books, really likes to soak up the alcohol from the markers, so it tends to dry quickly. Also, if you live in a place where the air is dry, that will affect this as well, versus a place that's more humid. So just keep that in mind too. There we go, marathon complete. Okay, so that is how you color without getting these lines, using an alcohol marker, even around tiny little intricate stuff. It can be done, you just have to be mindful of where you're gonna start and then where all of your wet edges are, so that you make sure that you keep wet with wet until you're done the section that you're coloring. Well, I hope you found this video useful. If you like my videos, be sure to subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!